Imagine walking into your kitchen tomorrow morning, opening the refrigerator, and discovering that one of the most ordinary foods inside had quietly influenced the rise of kingdoms, the survival of explorers, the fortunes of merchants, and even the birth of entire civilizations. Not bread, not meat, not wine. Cheese. It sits on pizzas, sandwiches, burgers, and cheese boards around the world. It's so familiar that most of us barely think about it. But behind every slice, every wheel, and every crumb lies a story so strange that it almost sounds fictional. Because cheese wasn't invented in a royal laboratory. It wasn't crafted by an ancient king. It wasn't even created on purpose. According to the oldest and most widely accepted theory, cheese was born from a mistake. A forgotten bag of milk, a scorching journey beneath the blazing sun, and a discovery that no one could have predicted. At first glance, that accident seems almost insignificant. After all, what difference could spoiled milk possibly make? As it turns out, everything. That simple transformation turned one of nature's most fragile foods into one that could last weeks, months, or even years. It gave early humans a way to preserve precious nutrients long before refrigerators, electricity, or modern science existed. It helped communities survive harsh winters, devastating droughts, failed harvests, and journeys across landscapes where fresh food was almost impossible to find. Without realizing it, our ancestors had stumbled upon one of humanity's greatest food technologies. And once that discovery spread, history would never taste the same again. But here's where the mystery begins. Nobody actually knows who made the first cheese. There isn't an ancient monument celebrating the world's first cheesemaker. No king ever claimed the invention. No civilization left behind a detailed instruction manual explaining exactly how it happened. Instead, the true beginning of cheese is hidden in fragments. Tiny clues scattered across deserts, caves, pottery shards, ancient poems, and forgotten graves. For thousands of years, archaeologists believed this mystery might never be solved. Then, buried beneath layers of earth that hadn't been disturbed for millennia, they started finding evidence. Not recipes, not kitchens. Tiny traces of milk fat trapped inside broken clay pots. At first, these microscopic residues didn't seem very exciting. But advances in modern chemistry allowed scientists to study them in astonishing detail. Those invisible molecules became time capsules, revealing what people had been cooking and storing thousands of years ago. And the results were extraordinary. Some of those vessels had once contained milk. Others had held something far more interesting. Milk that had been deliberately transformed. Milk that had been separated into curds and whey. In other words, cheese. Those discoveries pushed the origins of cheese-making back thousands of years, into an age when cities barely existed and writing hadn't even been invented. Long before pyramids rose above the Egyptian desert. Long before mighty empires stretched across continents. Long before history had names for kings. People were already making cheese. But that only deepened the mystery. How could prehistoric farmers, people without chemistry, microscopes, or any understanding of bacteria, discover one of the world's most complicated food processes? The answer begins with another revolution. Not cheese. Animals. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived as hunters and gatherers. Every meal depended on what could be hunted, caught, or found. Some days were plentiful. Others ended in hunger. Life was unpredictable. Then, around 12,000 years ago, something remarkable happened. Across regions of the Fertile Crescent, communities began doing something their ancestors had never imagined. Instead of chasing animals, they started keeping them. Wild sheep became flocks. Wild goats became herds. Eventually, cattle joined them. This single shift changed almost everything about human life. Families no longer had to wander endlessly in search of food. Villages began to grow. Farming emerged. Permanent homes replaced temporary camps. History often celebrates agriculture as the beginning of civilization. But hidden within that agricultural revolution was another problem. Milk. Fresh milk was incredibly valuable. It contained protein, fat, minerals, and water. Everything growing communities needed. There was just one problem. It spoiled. Fast. Without refrigeration, a container of fresh milk could become undrinkable within hours, especially beneath the intense summer heat of the ancient Near East. For early farmers, this wasn't merely inconvenient. It was devastating. Imagine spending months raising animals, finally collecting precious milk, only to watch it sour before your family could finish drinking it. That wasn't simply wasted food. It was wasted survival. People experimented. They cooled milk in shaded caves. They buried containers underground. They stored it in clay jars. Sometimes these methods helped. Usually they didn't. And yet, every now and then, something unexpected happened. Instead of turning into foul-smelling waste, the milk changed in a completely different way. It thickened. Solid white clumps appeared. A watery liquid separated from them. To many people, it probably looked ruined. But hunger has always made humans curious. Someone, somewhere, dared to taste it. Instead of poison, they found nourishment. Instead of rot, they discovered something rich, satisfying, and surprisingly durable. But discovering cheese was only the beginning. Learning to make it consistently, learning to improve it, learning that different animals produced different flavors, learning that time itself could transform fresh curds into something harder, sharper, richer, and more valuable. That required generations of observation. What began as an accident slowly became knowledge. Knowledge became tradition. And tradition became one of humanity's oldest crafts. Soon, villages weren't simply drinking milk anymore. They were mastering it. And as those early cheesemakers refined their methods, they created something even more remarkable than food. They created a product that could travel, a product that could be traded, a product that could feed armies, cross deserts, survive winters, and eventually sail across oceans. Without realizing it, they had laid the foundation for an industry that, thousands of years later, would produce millions of tons of cheese every single year. But before cheese conquered the world, it first had to conquer the village, and the people who accomplished that would unknowingly change the course of civilization itself. And that brings us back to where we started. The next time you open your refrigerator and see a block, slice, or wheel of cheese, you're not just looking at food. You're looking at the result of thousands of years of accidents, survival, experimentation, trade, exploration, faith, science, and human curiosity. A forgotten shepherd, or perhaps many forgotten shepherds, may have unknowingly started a chain of events that reached all the way into your kitchen. Most people will never think twice about the cheese they eat. But now you know that every bite carries a story that helped shape civilizations. And if you enjoy uncovering the extraordinary history hidden inside the ordinary things we use every day, subscribe and join us for the next journey through history. Because sometimes, the most fascinating stories aren't buried in ancient ruins. They're already sitting in your home, waiting to be discovered.